Welcome to Paley Front Row, part of the Paley at Home series presented by Citi.
Big ideas often start small. When the global payments and software company Flywire wanted to get from here to there, they needed a global bank like Citi. With local teams in 95 countries, Citi was able to help Flywire grow and expand into businesses like education, healthcare, travel, and B2B worldwide. In turn, inspiring the next generation of ideas for the love of moving businesses forward, for the love of progress. Citi.
All right, y'all ready to have some fun? Let's do this. Okay, now is the time to bring out our panel of casting creators. So please join me in welcoming Katee Sackhoff, Bo-Katan herself, and how about Pedro Pascal? Next up, please welcome Rick Famuyiwa. And Mr. Dave Filoni. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Jon Favreau. What a crowd.
You're April too.
Wait, what?
They're saying happy birthday.
Oh, it's true.
We're like, how many,
We're a
6
few
days apart?
days apart, 6 days apart.
6 days apart.
How's everybody doing? All right, so let's talk about this episode we just saw here. So for Jon, Dave, and Rick, we are getting deeper and deeper into the mythology. How would you say the show has evolved since the very first episode, not only in terms of story, but also production?
Who's going for that?
Since the beginning.
I'm going for that?
I think that's you.
I mean, I think, you know, it's been exciting to see how it's progressed over the years, and I think each season we've sort of pushed ourselves creatively, but ultimately we're servicing that original story, which was about this young child and Dinjarin, who was his caretaker. And I think as that story has grown and taken us to different places, the demands of the production have grown because the story has just grown with it. And so I think this season has been a real culmination of a lot of things we've done over the first few, and with the season of Book of Boba Fett as well. And so, yeah, I think this feels like we've sort of pushed it as far as we can without breaking it. So.
Hi, Pedro.
What's up?
So this season, we're seeing Dinjarin get more back into the way. How has being a father changed him?
He steps into his truest identity through the relationship that he has to Grogu, you know, and, a man who armors himself against the world and even against, you know, understanding who he even is outside of orders and survival. And now with this, with love, he knows who he is, or is discovering more and more like who he is and what he's capable of, and how he has much to learn from the child itself.
Now, Dave, we've seen many of your characters adapted into live action. Most recently in this episode, we saw Zeb.
Yeah. cool. Very cool.
But we've seen Cad Bane, Ahsoka Beyond. Who was, would you say, the most difficult to get right, or maybe the one you were most worried about adapting?
I don't know. They're all a challenge, because you're taking them out of one medium, put them in another. I think that for Cad Bane, we wondered if that would actually translate. He's so lean and had to have a certain personality, but that came together really well. I think Zeb was particularly hard because as an alien, he was going to be completely driven by computer animation, but that also oddly kept him in animation. And so Steve was able to do the voice. So I don't know, the animation team, that I work with, I'll just say I'm very proud of them. They created great characters, and I think they translate really well every time. So it's not that big of a problem to bring them over.
Well, speaking of one of these characters, hi, Katee.
Hi. I'm so wishing I didn't put my glasses on. It was easier when I couldn't see you. I mean, they do call us the mummy and the poppy, yeah?
Yeah, they're our space parents. You've embodied Bo-Katan throughout many iterations, many years. Are you still learning more about her? And is there anything that you learned this season so far that maybe surprised you?
Oh my gosh, of course. Every second that you inhabit a character, you learn more about them because you're taking their experiences and their backstory and all of these things into every moment that you're portraying them. And there are times where you know exactly what you're supposed to do, and then there are moments where you're just completely taken off guard, and an emotion that the character would have or would be feeling just takes you someplace completely different. And I'm always learning new things about her, and every single director that comes in and every single person that imparts a little piece on that of themselves into her changes who she is moving forward. So yeah, she's just, she's the gift that keeps on giving.
So one of the places we see you two go this season is Mandalore. Can you talk about what went into approaching that story and even that production design as a team?
Well, we knew that Mandalore was a place that eventually all roads led to. And the idea of, part of the inception of the show, in addition to being so captivated by everything, everyone wearing Mandalorian armor, starting with Boba Fett, all the way from our childhoods all the way through the shows that Dave had done and also the prequels, the big question mark was where are they? Why aren't they around during a lot of the stories that we've seen unfold? And so the idea that they were scattered seemed like an interesting, dramatic opportunity. But they want to return back to their home planet. And so we're seeing this season how all of those pieces have to come together for it to culminate. As far as the design goes, if you saw in the second episode of this season, we go down into the mines, and we've been working in the periphery in the beginning. We reached out to Phil Tippett to do some stop motion animation for us. And I've always, even since I was younger, the aspect of Star Wars that always made me the most interested and curious was the things like the Dejeric chess set or the Rancor or the stop motion that Phil Tippett had done. And so we reached out to him and we started to develop a relationship where he started doing work. And then finally for this season, when we wanted to go down to the mines, we had him collaborate with our production designers and work on models and designs for what those haunted, creepy, abandoned mines that had been completely changed and obliterated by years of warfare and by the Great Purge. And so a lot of what you're seeing in the show is the personality of artists who are coming together, and Phil Tippett is a perfect example of that.
I love that. So, Dave, if I may, One of the most traumatic events of all of Star Wars is an event called Order 66, and I think you've showed it to us from like 17 different angles, and I've heard it so many different times.
Okay, fair.
But one of the biggest questions of the show that was answered this season is who saved Grogu from the events of Order 66? And we get our answer with a Jedi named Kelleran Beck, who is played by Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks in the prequels. Can you talk about landing on that decision of that moment and who it would be and why that was significant?
Oh, it's very significant because everybody loves Grogu and wants to know more about him. And I think, John and I, as we started to explore his backstory and as we figured out that he would have been around, in those old days, you start to ask, well, how does he get from one place to the other? How does he end up on this mud planet in the middle of nowhere? He seems pretty significant. And so we start to plot out what the thoughts are, and the big question is, well, who is, or is it just one person that makes the difference? How were the Jedi protecting him and other younglings? Because some of them, unfortunately, ran into Darth Vader. It didn't work out. So we had to keep him away from that guy. Because
bad news, yeah.
He was having a bad mood that day, and but it's a lot of tension around that, obviously. And I love working in that era. I love the prequel era. I love making the Clone Wars, and so it was very fun to see those things. To walk on set and see clones is like mind-boggling for me because I've seen them digitally. Even when they did the movies, there weren't real actors in suits, and we had that, which was really cool. But when it came to a Jedi, something John and I think, share, and Rick obviously was very interested in as well, was we like people that just love this stuff. And if you ever been a med, he loves it. And he's been there for the fans over the years through a lot. He's never wavered in his love of Star Wars and support of it. And I think it's really powerful. He's such a great example of what it is to be a Jedi in life. He has a selfless way about him. And so I think it made him a natural choice to be the person that you'd want to see open the doors and it's going to be all right because it was him. I mean, you could speak to it too.
Yeah, and I think also in creating that character of Kelleran Beck that Ahmed had done for the Jedi Temple Challenge. And we love to, part of what we like to do on this show is pull in from all of Star Wars. And sometimes the least obvious choice to pull in is sometimes the best. We've been doing that since season 1. And because people have been paying such close attention to Star Wars, the more you're invested, the more you understand all the different elements, not just from the films or from the animated shows, but also from the extended universe and legends. And so bringing it all together and curating it together. But it made perfect sense that character who was working with younglings would be a person who would be looking out for younglings. Yeah. So it made sense on so many levels. But you never know until it happens. And then it was really nice when that reveal was made that everybody really felt excited and surprised, but really satisfied with the way the story went.
The scream that I let out when you're talking about season 1 too. I remember I've been pushing for you to do a holiday special because you guys were pulling from that in season 1.
That's right.
Boy, oh boy, yeah, that came close. Yeah. You never know. Yeah, you smile on that one. I know you do.
What do you mean?
The Boba Fett cartoon's great in it.
It is great.
Of course. Yeah. No, we all know you like that. That's very clear.
I'll bring up the holiday special as much as I can. So throughout the show, you've had an incredible lineup of directors. I don't even want to start naming them because I will miss some. It's like Peter Ramsey did in this episode. When you're looking at filmmakers to bring into the fold, what are you looking for?
Well, I think Dave said probably the most important qualification is just really the excitement around getting to be involved with making Star Wars. It's what that's the one thing we all have in common. We may have come from different, different generations, different filmmaking backgrounds, animation, independent film. Some people hadn't had much experience at all, but everybody's a good storyteller, and everybody, because it's really a team sport. Unlike a movie where it's one person's vision, this is a shared vision. And, in addition to the performers and the actors, but like Rick's been there since the second, Dave directed the first episode of season 1, Rick directed the second episode and has been with us all the way through. So and so as all the directors become more and more experienced, then they could help bring in the next generation of directors. And many of the directors this season were brought in by Rick. Maybe you could speak to some of the people.
We talked about just who would feel right, and they're people that I've been fans of and worked with, and felt like could come into our team and our family and really thrive. And I think what's been special about this environment is that it is that team and sort of family environment, and everybody supports each other, and with the love of Star Wars being the foundation. And so I'd worked for many years with Rachel Morrison, and felt like she could come into our world and really have a great point of view, not only as an incredible DP cinematographer, but as a storyteller in her own right. And as well been a huge fan of Peter from his time in animation and the things and the great broad and just really human and heartfelt storytelling he was telling in that medium, and obviously with Spider-Verse, he just killed it, right? And so those felt like both people who, had the sort of spirit of what we were doing and collaboration and really bringing incredible ideas, but we're just all out great filmmakers and storytellers. And I think we were just trying to continue building our family of storytellers, and then Lee Isaac Chung, who we were all fans of in terms of Minari and the work he's done over the years. And he had an interesting episode, right? And he really brought his point of view to that. And so I think that's also been what's been great about our experience, is that each filmmaker really gets to bring their point of view to the table.
And then Carl Weathers.
Oh, and Carl Weathers.
Part of the family.
Yeah.
That's the beginning.
That's right.
And I met Carl at the Directors Guild, so I actually know him, like, of course, his work, but then I also know him from just personally through being another director. And so, it was a big favor for him to come on board and be an actor in the show. Yeah. And then just from being around the technology and all the different techniques, because it's a very unique show in how we do it. It's, I'm sure you've all seen about, the stagecraft and the volume and how we have video walls for some of it, and some of it we shoot on sets outside. Some of it's more traditional CG set extensions. It's a mixture of a lot of different things, and we all support one another in bringing people into the style of filmmaking that's very specific to this show. And so, we all, just by being around one another, it allows everybody to learn about what everybody else does and participate in different ways. So in that way, I really am grateful for. This is different than the films that I've worked on, where you work on the film and you do create the sense of teamwork, but by the time it's out, you're all doing something else, unless it's a sequel. But even then, it doesn't feel the same as it does here, where when we're finishing one, we're writing another. Now, there are other shows that are being developed as well. So, we're sort of folding one into the other, all in this cohesive time frame that we're in. So it just feels like we're getting to continue this good experience and not have to say goodbye to one another and go off and hope to see each other again. We're all, people come in and out, they go off to work on other things, they come back in. And I've been at this career long enough to know and appreciate when I'm in a situation that I'm enjoying and I'm getting a lot of fulfillment out of. And I love how much people care about the work that we do. And honestly, that's the part that I feel the most spoiled by, because everybody has something to say, about it. But it's because they care, and they care about. But I've worked on things where people don't care, and there's nothing that's more disheartening than when you put all this work into something, and then people are like, oh, when's that coming out? And I was like, it is out. It doesn't get released; it escapes.
Yeah.
So, and here we know that people are waiting for the next chapter, and then to have it 1 week after the other, it's everything that we all started doing what we're doing. That's the feeling you want, and so just tremendous gratitude for being able to tell these stories and work with these characters, and a world that we inherited. Like, we didn't build, we're adding to it, but we're getting to play in a world that, that I started watching when I was little. I was a little kid, and then I was an usher in a movie theater, and worked. And by the time I was in high school, Return of the Jedi was out. And so it's been part of and I remember seeing it with my dad, the first film, and how cool he thought it was, and it was a bonding experience. And I love that this show is one that I hear a lot of multiple generations will watch together. And that doesn't happen that often nowadays.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Pedro and Katee, I want to hear from you on that, just expanding. Can you even summarize what this experience has been, not only with the family dynamic that you have here, but with the fans?
You talking to me?
Yeah, let's start with you, Pedro.
Both of you. What was the question?
What were you thinking about?
There's a strange echo in it.
What were you thinking about?
What am I thinking about?
What were you thinking about?
All right, I will tell you what I was thinking about.
Oh, boy.
I was thinking that I forget sometimes that there isn't a direct adaptation, as if it were the Bible or something like that, in that watching this episode and all of the Mandalorians and I don't know, just such specific world building. And there was a moment where I was thinking, yes, it comes from the world of George Lucas and Star Wars, but you guys have still created this detailed world that I forget that it doesn't come from like an encyclopedia, and
There's encyclopedias you can buy.
I understand. But you wrote them.
I was going to say he wrote them.
There's several encyclopedias. I'll send you some.
Oh, you
It's
said it.
interesting reading. It's good.
But they come from your brain.
Nah.
I mean, it's a lot of it.
It's there. We visit.
And that's what I was thinking about anyway. Moving on. I was just thinking it's really good.
Gone deep.
That was basically the question.
I spaced out.
Yeah, that was basically
I
it.
spaced out.
That was it. He hit on it.
He hit on it.
I did. Oh, so I answered the question.
You did.
Yeah, you did.
5 points. Good.
Katee, for you, can you summarize this experience?
I was going to say, I forgot the question now. No,
This is going great.
This has just been amazing. I grew up watching science fiction with my dad, and Star Wars was one of the things that we shared together. And to have been a part of the animation was already like such a huge thing for me. But to have been able to take the character into live action was something I'd only ever dreamed about. Like, truly, it was just so.
I don't think it's happened before.
I think maybe it has now, but like I opened the floodgates.
Right.
But no, it is phenomenal. It's like, this is just,
I remember
I'm speechless.
The first day you were on set.
And I'm speechless still.
With the costume. I remember the first day you were on set, it was the episode that Bryce was directing.
Yeah.
Another one of our great directors, Bryce Dallas Howard. And
Yeah.
she, on the call sheet, it was Bo-Katan was going to be on the set, and Dave was there.
Yes,
and I remember it was on board the Gazanti ship.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that you had walked out in the armor. And
I don't know what that means.
Wow.
And,
We won.
What does that
I don't know if that's left over.
What we won.
and I don't know who was
Budget
more,
cuts.
who was more, it was more surreal for. If it was Katee or if it was for Dave, because Dave was also looking at, I think she was the first character from animation that you saw in live action. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
It was the first time, so it was very surreal for both of them. And Dave and I would just walk away and we would talk about it. And there was a lot of just the same conversation, which was like, this is so weird.
It's
This
so
is
weird.
so weird. And now we're doing it like you saw today with Zeb or with other characters. But it's
He
been.
said Zeb.
It's okay.
He said Zeb.
Yeah, you're good.
We're good.
No, you're
We're
good.
good.
Sorry. Reflex.
But it's been, you've now brought a lot of your characters as Ash
Yes.
pointed out, but that was, you remember that first time with you and Katee? What that was,
I do. I have pictures. It was crazy. It never gets old. But I told you when we started Clone Wars, I said, because I was so excited you were doing the voice. And I said, you never know. Yeah, we might do this in live action one day. And you looked at me like, mm-hmm.
You say
Good. And you said that. And I was like,
You say that now, but at the time
I did say
thought
that.
you were drunk.
what?
I thought you were drunk. No, but you never.
Oh, no.
You can't possibly
No.
think, you know, like.
Sure, it was so far
It was
far
so
away.
far away.
I had never done anything like that before. So it was a big promise. It took a decade of hard work. And then we finally got there. And then you're in the costume, which is amazing. And I remember, to finish it though, I remember when we had the fitting and you're in the costume and I came in, you looked at me and you're like, you did it. And I'm like, no, you're doing it right now. And it's exactly like it should look. Like, that's the thing that's weird, is it's not, it doesn't throw me because I know these characters. I see them all the time in my head, and then they're just there. And it's
I'm so
it's
glad
a
I
little
met
surreal. The
you.
biggest thing is like when I see Ro and she's Ahsoka, she's Ahsoka. Like I don't see Rosario Dawson, I see Ahsoka. And because by the time I get to set, she's already been there. So when she walks on the stage, she's orange with stripes and it's Ahsoka. And then by the time she leaves, it's late. And so you won't see her as her. You just see her as Ahsoka. And that's the way it is. And it's awesome. The biggest thing is when you walk on, there's a massive set and a giant wall that you've built and someone's standing on top of it. And you're like, boy, I hope this story is good because this looks expensive.
This is expensive.
And this is a big, like when animation, I just drew the wall and I'm like, make it smaller, make it bigger. It doesn't hit you the same way, but you're looking at every stitch in the helmet and everything you're doing. You're like, I better go work on that script more. I'm gonna ask Jon if that joke plays, because I don't know. But it's awesome. I never thought I'd get to do it, let alone with such talented people. It's a real privilege, and it's as exciting as it was when I started in 2005. I love Star Wars. It's the best galaxy there is.
So I want to back it up to the premiere night of the show because Grogu, then Baby Yoda, the child, was a surprise until the very final second of the show. There was no merch, nothing, nobody knew about him. So what were you guys thinking that night? Did the worldwide embrace surprise you? Were you nervous? Like, what went through your head?
It's so hard to keep a secret.
Yeah.
So hard. So glad that got out finally. The right way.
I think that's what I felt was
Yeah.
just, I'm glad I don't have to wait on this another day.
It was so stressful.
With the fear that it's gonna get out or somehow my kid would see something and go to school and say something and
Yeah.
Jon would be like, what the hell, man?
And a lot of stuff did leak, but we were lucky that the two big surprises that really we wanted everybody to experience together, that was the point. That's really what we care about, and that's why we want to keep a secret. And that's why we asked, like you're saying, there was no merch for Grogu. Like, that was a big sacrifice that Lucasfilm and Disney made on behalf of the show to say, because it takes like a year to make stuff. So they put themselves at a disadvantage from that standpoint, all in interest of making for a great experience for people who saw the show. And that was important because, look, how great is it to have a night like this where we get to see this show and actually hear your voices and your laughter, your clapping, your cheering. Like, that's everything. And thank you. And that's part of what's been fun about this process. And that's why we want to make sure we keep the secrets.
And credit to the crew, because our entire crew stayed tight-lipped. And I always thought that was because they felt that it was special and important, and they wanted to be part of the success of that moment for everybody watching, for their family and everything. So that's a tremendous effort by everybody that worked on it, you know, to stick together like that.
So, Jon, you mentioned 2 surprises. So the first one being Grogu, the second one being
Mark Hamill.
Luke Skywalker. Right?
I know, I decline.
Grogu was kept from the audience, but Luke Skywalker was kept from you guys. What were you told was happening on set that day?
Yeah, okay.
There was this blonde guy that really looked like somebody. In an outfit that looked really
There were 2
familiar.
shoots, right? So there was one shoot with Mark Hamill and the VFX crew. That was a small shoot. But then we actually did the full scene with everybody with different... So, Katee, you were there for that one.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
Yeah, and I looked right at Dave, and I had an entire conversation about the scene, and he told me it was Plo Koon, and I believed him.
I didn't believe it.
Because it's Dave, and I figured we've been friends for so long, he wouldn't lie to me. And then I was watching it at home with you guys, and I was like, that is not Plo Koon.
Pedro, you had...
I knew it was Luke.
Like, you guessed or somebody told you?
Huh?
Like, you guessed or someone told you?
You told me.
Well, he was talking to him.
I don't know.
You know, there was the possibility of like subtle nuance without Din knowing it's Luke. It may have helped me knowing just in case there was like an intonation that might support the moment for everybody. You know what I mean?
But when you see Pedro's face looking at him, that's what makes it all click, is that moment of saying goodbye and that he could trust it. And to me, the one was R2-D2 when R2-D2 rolled on.
That's what got my family. I mean, the whole thing did, but when R2-D2 came out, my entire family started sobbing.
Because that's when the little guy was like, oh, I got a friend I could go with. And it was like, and then
that was the fun, because when we were working that out in story and we had decided it was going to be Luke, that made the most sense to us. And we were so into that, and how are we going to do that? And when said, and I looked at you because I know you love R2. And I said, Jon, you know what it means if we get Luke? And he's like, what? I said, it means we get R2. And that just, the whole room just stopped. I never saw you. You were so, like, the emotion was so raw. And then I had drew a picture for you of R2 leading to Grogu, and it was
and we reenacted it.
It's kinetic.
In the episode.
Because I was like, when Wicket, sees R2, I'm like, that's like a moment. You know, he's smaller than R2, and it's just George, they did that shot, and I'm like, well, we have to do that shot because we got the 2 little guys, so it was super cool.
It was great, and that's the one day. That's when I was when R2 rolled out on the set when we were doing the secret. And it was so tense because it's a secret shoot. Is this going to work? And remember, Grogu was the first episode of the first season. Luke was the last episode of the second season.
Bad idea.
So every week we would like, did anybody say anything yet? And nobody had, and that was, I remember being on the set when we were shooting it, and R2 came out. Because on the first day, we had R2 with different colors. Remember, it was green. That we were going to do
people, or?
just so people wouldn't know on the set. And then when we had our smaller
they could lie to us.
Couple liars.
It's all your point of view. I didn't really lie. You're gonna find a great many of the truths we cling to depend largely on your own point of view. And in your point of view, we lied, but in our point of view, we kept a valuable secret about Luke Skywalker, which is very consistent with Star Wars. So if you think of it that way, we're acting just like Yoda and Obi-Wan. Oddly.
Yeah.
Oddly.
Keep digging.
I gotta think about that one.
Every time I do one of these, I just watch Dave like sink into his hat.
There's
more.
so much you don't know. We're so close on the surface to so many things that just we dodge and we miss, and I just go and I'm glad we got out alive somehow. Like we were just saying, when Zeb is done in their room and then he goes and talks, but I can't tell you what happens. That would be terrible if I did that. So I just can't do those things. But you want to know, and it's so much more fun when you watch these things than when we talk about it. But we like talking to you. We like telling you things and making you feel like we told you something, but we didn't really tell you anything. Not a thing. Not a thing, I hope.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. How much longer?
We got a while.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, we'll just...
And let's hear it for Ash. She's been with us
Yeah.
since the beginning.
She's the best.
Across the street, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
El
Or before
Capitan
anybody
season
knew
one.
what it was, before anybody knew what the show was. Yeah, no, Ash has been great, great.
Oh. Okay.
Good.
Nice. Okay, I'm fine. I know bigger picture is always tricky, and that's kind of what you're talking about, Dave. It feels like we're building towards something. How much more of the story do you guys have laid out at this point? How much do you feel there is to tell?
Dave,
We got to bump into Force Awakens or something. Come on, Dave.
Isn't that
Tell me
interesting?
something without telling me anything.
What an interesting question. Exactly the type of question I was saying we should avoid. And you're asking this question. There are there's so many balconies here.
There are so crazy amount.
I didn't realize there was one that high, you
Yeah, it
know?
goes all the way up.
Those of you who said, oh, we have time to get something to eat before we go.
There's we have a lot of plans. A lot of things are unfolding. A lot of things are set up. You know, it's all very fun. I think at the end of the day, we try to make the kind of shows and tell the kind of stories that we like, that we always dreamed of. And when we were just playing with Star Wars toys, you know, we've seen the cartoon of us playing with Star Wars toys, and it's fairly close to the truth. But there's a lot of, because why shouldn't it be at the end of the day, right? But we're very excited. There's been a lot of work that went into these several seasons, and now we have, you know, John Watts working with us on his show, which is in some ways, how do I put this? Connected to our time period at least. And then there's this other show, Ahsoka, which does some things. And so, and you know, it's all.
When's that coming out?
Yeah.
That's not.
Everybody plug their other stuff.
That's not a good question. The only answer is too soon because I have a lot to do. So, you know, but
It's looking really cool, by the way.
thank you. It's getting there.
It's looking really cool.
I mean, people always ask, they used to ask me when we did Clone Wars, like, how much longer is this gonna go? I'm like, well, we really enjoy making it, so we're just gonna keep doing it. And that was George's view. We always have in mind, right, that there's an end game. You always talk about what's the ultimate outcome. When it was easy in Clone Wars because George did it, so I always knew what the end was, and it was, you know, gonna be a downer. So but we tried to build our characters there. I always knew with Ezra that his ultimate journey was to save his planet and his people, and that was what was important. And so Simon Kinberg and I would work on that every season and try to make sure we stay true to that. So there are always long-term arcing goals, but in the style of these stories, there are always many, many stories. And something that I've thought about that I think is interesting is that probably people will tell stories with a lot of these characters well after I'm gone in the future. I mean, that's kind of how that works if they're good characters, you know, so, huh?
Clone yourself.
Clone myself, yes, that's been mentioned before.
It'll happen.
At high levels, so maybe that will happen, that would be nice.
Dr. Pershing on it.
But Dr. Pershing has it. No, because we're so dangerously close to slipping up. So I don't think that we'll talk about any of these things. See how you got that in there, and that was interesting. Very clever, very clever, very clever. Cloning from the audience, the Pershing from you, and then boom, there's a, you know, I won't even joke about it. I had a good finish to that, but it would not be a joke. It would become a spoiler. It would become somehow canonical, and it would be everywhere tomorrow. And I cannot have that. I can't. But there are plans, and there are shows with characters in them. Right? Fair.
Good
Okay.
answer. Good answer.
This is the way.
Just to make Dave squirm even more, Pedro, is there anything that Din has not done at this point that you would love to see him do?
That's fair.
I would love him to put on this hat.
Go for it.
Yes!
Is this the right way? Is it the right way?
Yeah, very good. I like it.
No, I've always wanted to put this hat on. I can't believe it took me this long.
It's super sexy.
It's nice, right?
Yeah, it's sexy on you too, Dave.
I told you could pull it off. I told you.
Am I pulling it off?
You know who gave... It's good. It's good. It looks good on you.
Handsome.
You're the best.
It was that.
Look at that.
It's fantastic.
Now you can sell it.
It's going to pay for my show.
Katee, is there anything that Bo-Katan has not done yet that you would love to see?
Well, what a surprise.
I'll give you your $20 later. It's so much. I mean, you know, this is a character that I think that we're seeing the emotional toll of everything that she's been through over the years that we've all known her through Clone Wars and Rebels finally sort of come to fruition. And there's so much left to do. You know?
Just gotta unite Mandalore. Okay, so we have some audience questions that I have here. I'm gonna ask.
My favorite.
Your favorite part.
Yeah.
So this question is from Paley Center member Maria Fede Leon. Question for the cast of The Mandalorian. Did your 10-year-old self ever imagine being part of a successful franchise like The Mandalorian? If I came up to you when you were 10 years old and said, you're gonna be leading a Star Wars franchise someday, what would you say, Pedro?
I think I would have lied and said I already was. It's like, I'm in that. In my mind, I am, you know what I mean? So it's like...
What was did you have a pinch me moment? Was it the first day, or was there when it was airing where you were like, wow, I'm in freaking Star Wars? Yeah, you.
Yeah, there's tons of pinch me moments.
Go on.
There are many. I remember putting it on for the first time, like putting the whole thing on for the first time, because in the early meetings with Jon and Dave, and seeing all of the story illustrations and putting the helmet on, which really was one of the primary helmets that they used in production, and it fit perfectly. And then putting the entire outfit, and we're in the dressing room, and you weren't with me, but you know the dressing. Well, you know what you know what the dressing room looks like.
Spoilers.
And there's like a standing mirror.
Yes, you were in the dressing room.
Yeah. Anyway, I looked in the mirror and I said, holy shit. I'm a character in Star Wars. And it was an unbelievable feeling. It's burned into my mind, that moment of just looking, and plus you look so cool in that outfit. It really takes care of the whole job. Viva Chile!
This question is from Paley Center member Lisa Blakely. What TV shows do you guys like to watch?
Last of Us.
I'm not gonna look.
Just like cut away, now back to Pedro. There we go.
Well, I just finished watching Shrinking, and I thought it was fantastic.
I watched Fleischman is in Trouble. I love it.
There you go.
Dave, you watching anything? Just
I
watching Ahsoka?
I don't have a lot of time to watch. You know, I watch my show over and over again. Right now, trying to get it right. And I enjoy it, so there's that. I always tell Rosario, this is my favorite show. And I made it, so that's self-serving, but you know, I enjoy it. I'll take my dog on a walk then.
Oh, good. I just have shows I've been meaning to watch, like everybody.
That's right. That's more accurate.
That's it. I've been meaning to watch lots of shows.
I watched The Mandalorian. Dave, you're gonna love this. All right, this question is from Paley Center member Christopher Bauer. In season 3, we saw the return of Dr. Pershing in a tense and uneasy political thriller episode that felt a lot like something out of Andor. For Jon and Dave, how much did you know about Andor when making season 3, and did it influence you at all?
First off, I really enjoyed Andor.
Yeah.
Great job. And by the way, a testament to how many different things can be Star Wars at the same time. That each have different personalities, different casts, different time periods. We were, just how long it takes to make the show. By the time we had seen Andor, we were done with filming it. But I'm very happy that Coruscant lines up well enough, even though it's different time periods, that it lines up well enough that it feels like they could exist in the same world. So that, because it could have, because our fear is that, you know, if different people are making Star Wars and they don't align and they don't feel like it's all of one world, it'll take away from the experience of all of them. And so Dave Filoni, especially, as in his capacity at Lucasfilm beyond what he's doing on the shows, he stays involved and in communication with all the different filmmakers and all the different people telling the stories across animation and live action. So in film and in television, in sickness and in health, till death does he part.
Yes.
Yeah. So part of it is, you know, just very, very grateful that all the, you know, filmmakers care as much about Star Wars as we do, and that those things lined up, and that we had enough communication. But I had not seen any of it until I'd seen it when it aired, and it was really enjoyed the show.
It's great.
Great job.
Yes. Yeah, they did a great job. I mean, I think, to not answer your question, I would say that the thing that's most exciting for me is the incredible talent that we have that's come to Star Wars, that stepped up and said, I'd like to tell a story in this galaxy. You know, and, you know, Jon obviously, and I'm working with him all the time, is a great example. But Tony, you know, his involvement in Rogue One and him coming back and doing Andor, it speaks to how much he enjoys he sees the creative potential in the galaxy, and he's a fantastic storyteller. And that's what we want. We want people telling great stories and different stories that keeps this galaxy vibrant and special and alive for generation after generation. So there's something that everyone can find in every corner of this galaxy, and maybe they're like, that's my thing, I love that. You know, so, and I think it's an exciting time to be a Star Wars fan, or just a fan of great storytelling, because that's what our aim is to tell great stories with great characters.
And Pedro, I'm gonna circle back on something I said earlier. Pedro, hi.
Hi.
How you doing? So funny. Just say hi. From season 1 to now, what has this experience meant to you, and how has it changed your life?
It's changed my life completely. I feel like I've gotten to see, the thing is this, I knew it was gonna be amazing. And when I first met them, and I've told this story 100 times, I apologize how redundant it might feel, but the stepping into the room, meeting both Jon and David, and then in this room that had wall-to-wall story illustrations of the entire first season of The Mandalorian, and seeing the child, baby Grogu, and knowing that, oh, people are gonna die, you know? They're gonna love this, and also, I grew up. I started, you know, Swingers came out when I was like in college. And I'd seen Jon as an actor, and then saw Swingers and sort of understood what happens if somebody takes license and starts to tell their stories, and it just hasn't stopped since then. So it's sort of like into any territory, whether it be an indie film, a comedy, or incredible world-building stories like Star Wars and Iron Man. I mean, guys, come on. And then, yeah, Dave.
And then Dave's here.
And I was like, who's the guy in the cowboy hat?
That's fair. But I don't mind at all.
I've basically seen them do exactly what I know that they've set out to do, and do it for the people that love the stories as much as they do. And Dave told me at the very beginning of season 1 that he wanted you to do Bo-Katan, and I was like, oh my God, I love her from Battlestar Galactica. And so,
What's that mean? What's that mean? What's that
Second
signaling?
time he's lied to me.
That's not.
you
No.
like it.
Just
I don't see
kidding.
it that way.
I'm kidding.
But it's just sort of kind of knowing where they were, knowing how good it was going to be, not knowing exactly how they were going to get it done. I worry, to be honest with you, about how hard they work. Now you too. Because there's
Pedro Pascal is rubbing my.
Because that's how hard they're going to work to make sure that people love what they're seeing and experiencing, and that's a safe place to be from my vantage point, because I know I know the hands that it's in. So I mean, please, it's been cake for me.
I want to thank you guys so much for coming out tonight. I want to thank Katee, Pedro, Rick, Dave, Jon.